Hi, everyone. Welcome to the next episode of the Bay Street Capital Holdings podcast titled How Did You Do It and Why Should I Care? This series aims to highlight women doing amazing work in various industries. So today we are so lucky to be joined by Elisabet Raquel Garcia, DEI Student Resource Specialist and Intercultural Storyteller. Hi, Elisabet. Lovely to meet you. Let's hear about you.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm happy to be here. So about me, would you like me to start?
Yes, let's start with an introduction.
Okay. Well, I am a recent graduate, class of 2019, and I was a first gen low income student, turned 4-time international scholar. So during my
Wow.
undergrad, I was able to study abroad 3 times, and then I went abroad again after I graduated. Since then, I have now rebuilt myself as a DEI Student Resource Specialist on a mission to support historically underserved students in higher education and international ed to access the same opportunities that I had access to. And I do this by creating content for universities to use as tools to better support and advise students about the resources available to them.
That's really awesome. And what inspired you to join this industry and work with young people?
I would say my personal experience as a first gen low income student, along with a multitude of other intersectional identities, is what inspired me to get into this industry and doing this work. Um, I mean, I was a person who grew up and didn't even know that or imagine that higher education was an opportunity for someone like me, let alone such a highly esteemed international education. Um, or any of the opportunities and resources that I was able to access in college. I had no idea that they were for me. And in fact, I didn't even find out about most of the resources until my 5th year and in college when I was about to graduate. So even that is
Wow.
still a shocker for me.
Yeah.
So when I began college, I was a first gen low income student. I was struggling financially. I had 3 part-time jobs while being a full time student, putting myself through school. I also faced financial insecurity, food insecurity, mental health um, issues. So I was struggling a lot and I had no idea about any resources available to me. I learned about study abroad and I just saw it as a way out. I learned
Mm.
that my scholarships would go with me. So I took the opportunity to go and I knew my money would go farther. But even then, while abroad, I was still facing issues of food insecurity, housing insecurity, mental health concerns. So all of these things weren't addressed until I went back to university and I finally started going and looking for resources. And just by chance conversations, I learned about things like food pantries and that the university could have given me extra money instead of me having to work those 3 jobs and hustle for all the scholarships that I had, and that we had mental health resources available to us, and even the university can offer to pay for those mental health resources instead of me having to pay out of pocket. So this is kind of what inspired me to get into the type of work that I do now. I don't want any other students to have to experience the struggle that I did, and if I know that if students can access their resources more early on in their undergraduate experience, it can be a complete game changer for them. So that's why I do what I do.
That's awesome that you found out about the resources. I just wish it would have been sooner, but I'm quite curious. Where did you study abroad?
Sure. I studied abroad in Brazil for my second year spring semester in 2016. And then I did a field research program in Mexico for fall of 2017. And then I spent the calendar year studying abroad in Chile. And then right after I graduated, I was invited by the Mexican national government as a scholar of Mexican descent to come back and do a cultural immersion program in my state of origin. So it was really
Wow,
great.
that is awesome. Well, I'm amazed that you had those opportunities and like nothing was a barrier to hold you back. And I'm so glad that you can speak about these opportunities as well.
Thank you. Yeah, they
So
changed everything.
yeah, I mean, you mentioned a lot of resources, and I'm glad that you found out about these resources. But in your career, what were the best resources for you, and how did they help you along the way?
I will say that I'm still getting started. I'm very fresh to my career, but I feel that I'm making big waves. And I would say that the biggest and greatest resources to me so far have been other people who have helped me along the way. I want to mention one person in particular. I will just give her a little shout out. Her name is Ashley Baiman. She is my dear friend and mentor. She is my former advisor, and she is a study abroad advisor and coordinator at the University of California in Santa Cruz.
Mhm.
Um, for me, meeting her and having her friendship, her mentorship, and just having her as my advisor has changed everything for me. She is one of the few advisors who I have met in my life who has tried to help me and all students access all the resources and information that we need. So she has opened so many doors for me. She is the one who gave me my very first DEI Student Resource Content Creation project. So that's what she's actually what inspired me to start this business. She's the
Wow.
person who introduced me to scholarship opportunities and opportunities to study abroad and do the program that I did at the Mexican national government. And she's the person who's introducing me to colleagues in the industry and inviting me to be a co-presenter with her at different panels. So I would say that people, like Ashley in particular, and people like her have been my greatest resource. It's always been connecting and building relationships with others is what is helping me propel as a successful business owner who's changing the industry.
That's awesome. And it seems like DEI is very sort of a people focused role. So I can definitely see how people are so useful in this, industry and field.
Yes, definitely.
So are there any lessons that you wish you would have learned before starting in this field of DE&I?
I would say that because I'm still really early on in my career, um, I'm currently learning the lessons, right? So I can't go back and reflect on what I wish I would have learned. I feel like
Mm.
I'm in the midst of learning it all right now.
Mhm.
So things that I'm learning right now are how to navigate networking and connecting with the right people, online etiquette since everything is virtual now, maintaining connections with others, enriching your relationship with others. And I would say one other really important thing that I'm learning is not to burn myself out
Mhm.
and overfilling my calendar and trying to connect with others. It's
Mm.
a lesson that I'm still learning. I'm in the midst of learning it. For example, I do, I guess, coffee chats and networking calls. I'm really working on relationship building right now at this stage of my business. I
Yep.
do about 20 to 25 of those a week, and it can be exhausting.
Wow. Yeah, I'm
So,
sure.
so I'm in the midst of learning these lessons right now. Um, Nobody had told me when I got started, don't reach out to 300 people on LinkedIn and try to book coffee chats with them because I did that and I am very, very tired. But every single conversation I've had with people has been absolutely enriching and has opened so many new doors for me. So I
That's
wouldn't change it for the
awesome.
world. Yeah.
Wow, 25 to 30 coffee chats a week. That's impressive, but also I can totally second what you said about conversations. You can learn so much from your peers as well, from those who are higher above you, but also below you as well.
Yes, exactly.
That is awesome. So, what would you say is your biggest failure in your career? Or I know you're recently started, but if you can think about biggest failure in your life, and what did you learn from it?
I would say, like you mentioned, because I'm still getting started, I wouldn't say that I have a biggest failure in my career.
Mm.
And I kind of try not to consider things a failure in my life. I'm a strong believer that everything happens for a reason. But I
Mm.
will say one of the biggest lessons that I've learned so far has been learning how to value and honor my time and energy and not letting others devalue that for me.
Mm. Mm.
For example, I being a first gen low income person or a person from that background, and I still live in these conditions. By the way, I'm actually not even home right now. I'm at somebody else's house because their house is much nicer than mine. Uh, I've always lived with this type of scarcity mindset, so a fear of not having enough to support myself. So I used to be and am a workaholic, and I used to allow people to overwork me and undercompensate me all the time. So I was working a
Mm.
lot and getting paid very little. So a huge lesson that I've learned is to not allow people to do that, to honor and to value my time and my experience, and to not let people undervalue or compromise my value. Um, yeah, so
Yeah,
that's
super
my
important.
Yes, that's my biggest lesson for now. And since I've since changed out of that scarcity mindset. It's only been a couple of months, but I can feel a huge difference already. I've stopped working for other people in pursuit of my own business, and I can feel myself stepping into abundance. I'm unafraid of not having income just for a little while so I can go full-fledged in my business in pursuit of much higher income. And it's coming. I can
Yeah.
definitely feel it.
That's great. And I'm so glad that you identified this sort of lesson quite early on in your career, because then otherwise you would get burnt out really early on in your career. So that's great that you sort of value your time.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Of course. And what advice would you give to somebody who is wanting to pursue a career in a field similar to yours?
I would say if anybody is interested in doing either DEI work in the field of DEI or DEI work in a different field, for example, how I do DEI work in the field of higher education and international education, I would say definitely go for it and be unafraid.
Mhm.
And to step into this industry, both DEI and education, with a mindset of collaboration and community over competition, right? I feel that in a lot of other industries, it's very dog eat dog, very much competition. But in DEI spaces and in education spaces, it's really about building connections and helping each other. So if anybody is trying to get into this industry, I would say come in with this mindset because it will help you a lot. You're not going to get anywhere with trying to compete with others. You're only going to get to places with by collaborating and supporting one another.
Very important. Lifting each other up, for sure.
Mhm.
So we're now moving on to a question which sometimes people are like, well, now I've got the stage, I can take it. But what is one common myth about your professional field that you would like to debunk?
I guess one common myth about my professional field, and I will speak on the side of international education and higher education, since I do DEI work within this field, is that I guess there's a common myth and perception that everybody in this field is the same. I guess
Mm,
that falls under a certain demographic, that it's very heterogeneous,
mm,
so that there's not a lot of diversity. And while it is true in the fields of higher education and international education, a lot of people in power and in certain positions do fall under certain categories, right? So a lot of them are upper class, well educated, white people of means and well traveled. But that doesn't mean that they all think the same or with the, I guess, imagined notion of how we think that they would think, right?
yeah,
So, yes, the common myth is that everybody in international ed and higher ed is white and closed minded. Um, that's an imagined idea. From my experience, a lot of the people who are breaking into the field are people of diverse racial and ethnic backgrounds. And it's really exciting to see the change in the waves that they're making because it's opening up the industry of higher ed and international ed and implementing a lot of really important DEI initiatives, which is completely transforming the field, not just for the people who are working in it, but also for the students and the clients that they support. The whole goal with this newer generation of higher ed and international ed professionals is to transform it and be more diverse, equitable, and inclusion. So for people like me, I call myself a DEI Student Resource Specialist in the field of higher ed and international ed. And what I'm seeing is that the newer generation of people entering the field, while they are professionals in higher ed and international ed, they are coming in with a DEI lens. They are coming in with the intent of creating more diverse and equitable education opportunities. So it's really exciting and refreshing. And they are not only going to debunk the myth, but they are going to completely eradicate it within the next generation. I can feel it.
that's good to see and very encouraging to see as well.
Hmm.
So you seem like somebody who has many life experiences and amazing stories to tell, but in your free time, have you read or listened to anything recently that's really inspired you?
Yes. I would consider myself a podcast junkie, or at least I was. And I'm trying to take a step back from it. But some of my favorite podcasts that I've listened to recently, which have been very inspiring for me, are Business Without the Butts by Cassandra Lee and Monica Schrock. I actually know them personally. Cassandra is my
Wow.
branding coach. She's really great. Monica is also a great friend of both of ours. I really love their business podcast. It's all about, I guess, de defrauding or defrauding marketing. So making sure
Mm,
that we're doing marketing with integrity, right? That
mm,
we're not condoning manipulative marketing and that we're really focusing on supporting our clients throughout the journey. So that's one. Another really inspiring and great podcast that I love is The Writers Co-op with
mhm.
Wudan Yan and Jenny Greers. It's all about content writing and copywriting and about um, getting grants to fund your projects and how to create a sustainable writing business. I really love that one because I myself have a background as a content writer and
Yep.
am a writer at heart. So, love that podcast.
That's,
And one book that I really love, and a reason why I'm stepping away from listening to so many podcasts, is the book How to Do Nothing.
oh,
Um, yes, fantastic book. It is about um, I believe the complete title is How to Do Nothing Resisting the Attention Economy. Love,
oh.
love, love the book. Highly recommend it to people who work in digital spaces, especially online service providers like myself. I'm a digital content creator. It addresses the notion of, I guess, taking back your time and respecting your time and value and not giving it to the attention economy, the digital attention economy, which requires us to be online 24/7 and to give our life to living online. So I really love that book and
Yeah, sounds
listen to
very
it.
interesting and very
Yes,
relevant to today as well, because I'm sure lots of people are spending a lot of time online and, you need to learn to when to take a step back, essentially.
exactly. Yeah. Highly recommend the book.
Amazing. And you touched on one of the more important people in your life earlier, but who are three people in your life who have been the most influential to you?
I was actually going to mention this person again for this segment. I really think that, or at least I'm a person who is most impacted and influenced by the people close to me.
Yeah.
So, again, some of the most influential people have been the ones who have been there for me throughout my journey. This includes my former advisor and mentor, Ashley Baiman, who I mentioned earlier,
Hmm.
along with my content strategy and coach, Cassandra Lee, who's
Hmm.
also the podcast host for Business Without the Butts. Um, and them, along with another friend of ours named Andrea Maleria.
Oh,
These
yeah.
three people have completely changed my life because they are the ones who have influenced me to want to pursue starting my own business. They're the ones who have supported me throughout the journey, and they're the ones who inspire me to not give up. So these three people are the ones who have impacted me the most.
Wow. Sounds really powerful that you're surrounded by such influential people.
Yes.
That's great. And finally, at any point in your life, is there any advice that you wish you gave yourself?
Advice I wish I would have given myself, or I guess my younger self, is to not give up and to not be so fearful and so anxious about the future. There were many times in my life where I was just ready to completely give up. Um, and I'm just glad that I never did. But the amount of time that it took me to get out of the rut, out of
Mm,
the feelings of anxiety about failing or about not amounting to enough, it took away a lot of my life. So, if I can give any advice to my younger self, I would say, don't be scared. Everything is going to be all right. Just keep going and let go of any fear or anxiety you have about the future and just step into it with full trust that everything's going to be okay. Because once I let go of that fear and that anxiety, everything has just opened up for me. So many opportunities with this business, with different projects I'm starting now. Just everything has opened up once I've let that fear and anxiety go. And I let it take over my life for so long because I lived with that scarcity mindset and fear.
I'm so glad that you've now sort of overcome that anxiety and you're sort of achieving your dreams. So that's great to hear.
Thank you. I'm so happy and proud of myself for being able to do this all.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today, Elisabet. It was absolutely so lovely to get to know you and also your story.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I love talking to you today, and I hope that we can stay in touch.
Great. Thank you. Bye.
Okay.